we haven't actually seen any smoke yet. We obviously haven't seen any gun. We just see the possible preparation. Perhaps we sell some bullets or something. And this is usually coming from Bradley from the FSF. He likes to look at the licensing issues, especially, and how Canonical is using licenses to have some ownership or power over the competition. So, let's say.
I mean, it's still. I think, as we said yesterday, there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, and certainly over the coming weeks, I think more will be revealed and intentions will be made clear. But I mean, the one thing we can say about Canonical, certainly if you're a Linux user, it's the one company that probably everybody follows because there's so much news in the media about them. And I mean, I've been watching Canonical for many years, and what I can say is that when they've made big decisions in the past that have either been met with skepticism or praise, it seems that it's all worked out in the end, because now we're at a point where, I don't think it can be argued that Ubuntu is a hideously popular distribution. And I think at some point we have to have a little faith that Canonical knows what it's doing and has got a firm business plan in mind, and it's going to do the best thing for its users and for potential new users. And certainly of all the releases that I've been following and the ones that I deploy to people that are friends and family, it certainly suggests that. I've been very happy with the product that they've produced, the distribution they've produced over the last few years. So hopefully it's just a little bit of fear of the unknown at the moment. Hopefully we're going to see some big steps in a different direction maybe, and give Ubuntu a bit of uniqueness to separate it up from some of the other distributions out there, to give people more choice. That's my hope.
Yeah, we talk about choice, but it's an interesting thing because I don't want to try and quote things out of context or to try and pick things which are not verifiable, but I think Ubuntu has like 60% of the users of desktop GNU/Linux. I'm not sure if it's 60%, maybe more than 60%. So when you talk about choice, you probably want to try and persuade people to use something different from the whole kind of Ubuntu family, including I think Mint Linux got like 7% in one of the surveys, which I think Linux Journal did around March this year. And one of the things I'm concerned about, but also not so concerned about, is I don't really want Fedora to have too much market share because it's Red Hat and they already have almost domination in servers when it comes to GNU/Linux, although you have CentOS, but CentOS is not exactly a company, it's more of another branch, but it's rebranding of Red Hat itself, so it still kind of follows the lead of Red Hat. But with Ubuntu, it's the balance between a very community-driven thing and a corporation like Red Hat, which is traded publicly. The thing about Ubuntu, it doesn't really have a foundation. It's not structured in the same way as Mozilla. So you know that Mozilla, when they give you Firefox and Thunderbird and all these very nice applications, which I use and I'm very happy with. I refuse to use Chrome for the time being. One of the reasons I would use them is because I kind of trust them, because I know they cannot really go public as a company, and they cannot try to force upon you things which are driven by shareholders. And it's not that I'm against companies, but I know based on experience that they aren't exactly friendly to the community. They don't think in terms of community. They think we have this community, but we have the shareholders, community in quotes. And they have to serve both. Now, with Canonical, it's still a small company. They aren't publicly traded, and the investors are it's kind of more of a private kind of business, a bit like Linspire, or as it used to be, trying to think if there is I cannot think of any example of a similar, possibly Mandriva. So that was a kind of a small company. It still is, actually, it still exists, but I don't really think we should encourage people to only choose Ubuntu and kind of have one master distro. Everyone move to Ubuntu because we want to have one unified distribution. I think that's the worst thing we can do, is to eliminate choice and to give all the choice to the so-called the Steve of Linux or the Steve of Ubuntu, and kind of let them decide on what dies and what leaves and what should be abandoned. And that's the worst that can happen from a programmer's point of view as well, because it means they have a master that kind of tells them, I reject this and I accept that.
Yeah, I mean, my take on this would be, I mean, I think the people that have been in the Linux community for a long time, they make their own decisions, and I think they make those decisions based on personal circumstance and which distro suits them best, and their informed choices that they make. In respect of, say, encouragement of new users to migrate to Ubuntu, I think when we have a desktop domination of Windows at the moment, I think presenting a new user with multiple choice is probably more off-putting than Linux itself. I think a comment's been made to me regularly that too much choice can be a bad thing. I don't think that's the case, but I think when somebody's going for effectively a lifestyle change, going from Windows to a different operating system, I think presented with a plethora of choices is not always an encouragement to them to move. Now, Ubuntu, and any other large distro, I would look at the same way as what Firefox did to the browser. If my history, or certainly my experiences, are correct, we had Internet Explorer, which was the dominant browser, which still holds a big market share now. But Firefox, what it did was it produced a viable alternative which people used, they enjoyed, and used for many years. But then it also introduced them the possibility that, well, hey, we don't have to follow what everybody else is using. We can make a choice, and there's loads of choice out here. And then they started migrating away from Firefox and picking up their own browsers, examining browsers and exploring browsers themselves to find the best one for them. So I tend to look at Ubuntu a lot like that. A lot of people may use Ubuntu as a stepping stone to go onto other distros once they've found their feet with Linux, and a lot of people probably be very happy staying with Ubuntu. That's why I quite like the idea of one large distro which acts as the stepping stone to others. I personally don't think it does any harm to have that, and a bit of familiarity to a new user, I think, is probably a good thing, in my opinion, of course. Anything you wanted to?
Yeah, I thought we should probably talk about the competition as well. We've completely avoided doing that. I think we usually start a show by doing that. This is a very tempting thing to do. One thing that's kind of the mixture between both sides, both worlds. Lots of people talk about the London Stock Exchange at the moment. What actually happened is, I think it was July the previous year, 2009. They basically announced they were going to throw away a .NET-based solution, and one of the main, how should I say it was one of the big case studies for Microsoft and something behind the anti-Linux campaign. They call it, get the facts, and they put the stock exchange in London as the thing that supposedly assessed and rejected Linux, and what actually happened is the whole thing fell apart for Microsoft, and after several times that the deployment collapsed and people couldn't actually trade too well, they basically decided to drop Windows and move to a Linux-based solution. That was about a year ago. And what actually happens now is they're quite ready to move to the Linux system, and they test the system now. According to several reports, and I think they're completely independent, some form of like sabotage or something very suspicious is happening. Somebody's trying apparently to ruin the tests and to make the Linux-based solution basically fail. They don't give any of the details, but I think it's related to network, and maybe somebody's like pulling the plug or trying to slow down the system, which, by the way, actually broke some records. So they know that the system works viably well, but when they test it, something goes wrong. So they have to delay the actual transition to the new system. And it turns out somebody's trying to perhaps ruin the migration, maybe trying to suspend the whole thing and go back to Windows. And lots of people speculate it could be a person working with Microsoft or a person who was fired, maybe a very unhappy employee, but I haven't written anything about it because we don't have any piece of evidence to suggest a